Hello and welcome to the Max Revenue Show. I am your host, Trey Shields. The Zen Master of Commercial Insurance is on paternity leave. His wife had the baby over the weekend, and so he texted me and said, "Hey, man, I won't be able to make it for the David Cooper interview." So, David, sorry about that.
It is what it is, man. Families first, always.
Really cool episode for you today. David is doing some really cool stuff. Created his own risk purchase group, which is separate than a risk retention group, by the way, which we'll get into all this in a second. But first, shout out to today's sponsors, Insurance Xdate, generate leads, win new biz. Insurance Xdate is where smart PNC and EB producers go to get the data they need to prospect intelligently. You know, we've been on their bandwagon long before they were ever a sponsor. So go check them out. And if you haven't checked them out in a while, they've got a bunch of new features. They've got some really cool stuff over there. You can hook it up to your cowork, Claude, all kinds of different stuff. Go check it out. Also, shout outs. The other sponsor today is BindPoint, our new premium finance sponsor. Imagine you have a finance whiz and a multi-million-dollar producer, and they team up to create a premium finance company, you know, to help producers go out and win more business. They can absolutely compete with any of the big boys out there. And when you call them, you're actually going to get the owner on the phone helping you on the spot. So go check them out. Thanks again to Justin and Chris over at BindPoint. All right, David, without further ado, I'll turn it over to you. And I guess let's start off with the risk purchase group. We'll go into your backstory here in a second, but you told me, I was like, hey, man, what you got that we can dig into? And you're like, well, I started my own risk purchase group. So what is that all about? And please tell me why that is different, how it's different from a risk retention group.
Yeah. So, risk purchasing group, I think what we were trying to do was be able to build a program and scale it in the most efficient way we could. So, we looked into the risk retention group. Risk purchase group just made a lot of sense because we're targeting public entities. So group purchasing it's kind of a big theme with regard to the public entity buying space. So, my background before I got the insurance was really focused on public entity contracting. So I understood that procurement model really well. We've gotten this business some years ago and got into, public entity and transit, things like that. So we were doing it for a period of time. We're like, man, there's a problem. There's things broke. We're gonna build a solution for that. And our solution to scale something was to do the risk retention group out of the outset. It kicked off November 1st of 25. We're X amount of months into it, and man, we're doing really, really good.
And when you told me about the RPG versus RRG, I was like, well, man, what's the difference? And I mean, I'm not the most technically sound insurance person ever. Risk retention group, the premium is housed itself. It's self-insured. Whereas risk purchasing group, you bring the insureds together, but you go to market to procure the insurance. Is that basically the gist of it?
Yeah. So essentially, what we did, we went and basically kind of did a feasibility thing. We got like 10 transits, right? Put them together, all their underwriting information, and went to the market essentially. And we've got a primary liability partner that provides the $1 million primary liability auto GL. It's dedicated limit to that particular group. It's not shared risk. It's none of that. So, each member that comes into the RPG has a dedicated $1 million of coverage in those lines. And then we've got, a reinsurance partner on the back end. So we can get excess liability through a captive group.
All right. So I know you were part of one of Larry Linne's $1 million producer groups. I know you came up from outside the insurance world and you kind of got on board within the last 7-8 years, kind of, further along in your career. So let's circle back to the beginning. Tell me kind of how you found insurance and how you ended up in Larry's group, and then kind of what that it's been like since that.
Yeah, man. It's been a whirlwind of some years. I spent about 18 years, public sector, bidding, public entity contracts, environmental sector. That's really what I did for a long time. What was interesting about that, it's kind of like a pursuit and capture role, business development, bidding federal contracts. state contracts, municipal contracts, right? So part of that, I developed all the performas, wrote all the, proposals, all that good stuff. And part of that is every bid I did, I had to have a GRA, the work comp rate, right? By state, wherever we're bidding. Every job we were bonded. So I had, bid bond, the performance bonds. And that whole time, I had a partnership with our brokerage. And when it was time for me to exit the environmental business and jump in and doing something like this, a few people said, you should consider becoming a broker, looking into this. And that's what I did. I had an opportunity, interview with kind of a large broker, and then, in Shurica, and man, here we are. Wrote quite a story, um, was given a great opportunity by Insurica, throughout that process, Insurica is just fantastic at, pouring the gas to making you better, right? Investing in their people. And that's when I was first, introduced to the Insight Performance Group, Larry Linne and his team, and that started with, Catalyst 1, Catalyst 2, and then to the, to the $1 Million Challenge, which we're pretty close to wrapping up. And man, you want to talk about, a water hose in your face, but concepts, things that you learn, things that you just take and you mold into your own sales process is kind of what's helped me get where I am.
Now, this $1 Million Challenge was, and this is not meant to be a Larry commercial. It's how we came across each other. You had actually reached out to me a long time ago and was like, "Hey, man, you should really have this guy on," and
Yeah.
I just ignored it. And then, about a dozen other people sent me the same message. And so finally, when the universe like hits me in the head a couple of times, I tend to ignore it. But after it's, overwhelming preponderance of evidence, I eventually come around. But anyways, you're in the public transit space, public entity space, and you're having some success. Tell me how you went from that to building your RPG. Like, what did that process look like?
Yeah, I guess it would have started kind of out of the gate for me. I started in March of 2019 in this business after, at 44 years old, um, reset, starting something new, but got going. And really it was like, man, I don't know, 6, 8 months into the insurance deal, there was an RFP for broker selection for a public transit, right? Right up my alley, right? RFP, proposal response. Transportation's been my wheelhouse. When I was in environmental business, we had close to 600, 700 vehicles. So transportation's always been, something that kind of drove me. And so, I responded to truly a broker selection RFP. It was round one. Man, get a phone call, get a meeting. Here we go. And that's what sparked it, right? Then, from my environmental days, the way we branded and kind of built our business was associations, getting involved, uh, and learning and meeting people. And essentially, it's what I did out of the gate. I got that deal done, started with who are the public transit associations, the regional, the state, the national. Just got going, man. Just went out there and didn't know anybody. Just started showing up, being in the room. And I think that is critical. If you're going to build a program and be niche focused, you got to get out there, get involved, get branded, and meet people.
Got it. So how did you begin to actually put the pieces together? If you were going to tell somebody, who's in a hard to place vertical like transportation like yourself, like let's say I'm doing I don't know, I'm in landscapers or I'm in demolition or whatever, how would I even begin to go about building one of these things?
For me, I guess out of the gate, and what I've always thought was important was, a mentor in the organization you're going to be working through. So, I had a mentor out of the gate, Ryan Knowles, branch leader, Tom Caraway here. Um, and then, what I noticed quickly that some of the guys, I'd go look at the leadership board, right? Production board, whose books where, who's making the money. Then I go right to the guys that are building the program. So we had two individuals that had built, well, just two specific built programs for schools, Guy Griggs and Jack Melton. Jack built the Texas program. the public schools, been in it for many, many years. Guy did the same for the Oklahoma kind of the school piece. So I just started thinking and emulating that. And I just thought to my mind, if I could just kind of stay in my lane and build what I was doing and learn all I could about that niche, that eventually would be an opportunity to build something like that. And the market really pushed us that way of doing renewals and seeing the rates just climb and climb and climb. And I guess it was just the pressure of the market, seeing the problems that these, public entities were faced with on renewals. And I said, there go, man, there's got to be a better way. When all along, when I got out in the transit world, like look around, who's the other agents, who's the other people doing this stuff, right? So I found a competitor. Um, he and I were at kind of started showing up the same shows, doing these things. We started to get up and rocking just individually with what I was building. Then I said, man, we got to join forces, get on my team. I got some ideas. And he said, well, let's see. And so I went at him once and he said no. And went at him a second time. He said, not quite ready. I like that Cheez-It commercial. Third time said, all right, you got me. Let's do something. And so essentially, uh, we kind of said, let's put this thing together. He kind of joined forces with us here at Insurica. We did a lift out. And I think within like 45 days of him joining us, last April, we put the bones together. We put a kind of a business plan together, got it to our C-suite, and man, they've been supportive out of the gate, man. I think what we presented, they saw the opportunity, saw the idea, saw the concept, and man, they've poured us the resources, the support, the backing. And the gentleman that we brought on board was Eddie Thomas, a competitor of mine out in the market. He was a Cobb's Allen guy, worked, he's from Alabama area. Then he moved to a Brightline agency in Texas, and then now he's with us at Insurica. And man, we're rock and rolling since he got here. And so we labeled the program the Community Transit Insurance Program. The RPG is essentially just a product of the program. But what we'll talk about down the road, Larry always talks about intellectual property and always trying to, you know, create something that you can't get anywhere else. And that resonated with me a long time ago. And I'm sitting there going, why don't we do something like this? And right now, this risk purchase group is exactly that. It's the intellectual property. It's right now, you can't get what we've built anywhere else. And branding is recognizing, we've really launched soft, and now our LinkedIn page has got some presence. Back behind me is we've got our own dedicated website. We're about to really pour the gas with some advertising. And Eddie and I are going to be quite busy the next 8 weeks hitting the road show of all these conferences. So here we are.
Without Eddie, he's kind of that missing piece from the volume. Like obviously you wrote a lot of it, but correct me if I'm wrong, you guys taking both of your books together and combining it was the critical mass that got it over the finish line.
Absolutely. He had a nice book. I had a book, and we had some great core clients, right? So that was what we used for the feasibility to go get the paper. And that's the deal. And I think what we learned early, that's the critical piece, right? Getting the paper, but you gotta have that critical mass, right, to get started. And now that we have that, it's in place, concept is somewhat proven, right? So now we got to run and go. And man, that's what we're doing. We've got great partnerships. We've got our own dedicated TPA. I mean, a lot of things have happened a little quicker than maybe some, but it is what it is, and we're going to run with it.
Just a couple of observations. Number one, having exclusive product is the holy grail in our business. And the thing is always, if you don't have one, you're like, well, how do I build one? And it's like the chicken or the egg thing. It's like, oh, well, I would love to have a tow truck product, or I'd love to have a manufacturing product, but you have to have the volume before you go secure the paper. But in the meantime, you can't necessarily go get all the clients you need because you don't have this great product. So it's always this chasing your tail thing. And so I think it's ingenious of you guys to actually set the ego aside and say, hey, what if we just partnered together instead of fighting against your competition? You guys saw the opportunity to just combine forces. And I think that's rare in the industry. So kudos to you guys for doing that. Tell me next, I know you guys, you have the paper, you control it. You're actually looking for people out there in the market who could potentially go help you move this product. You want to speak to that for a second?
Yeah, yeah. A lot of it we look at this as being kind of like a direct market solution, kind of like a federated, like a direct placement type thing, right? Where we can do that. But what we also understand is your relationships are local, right? And we what we call a referral partner network. We'd like to work with other agents and brokers that are out in the market, maybe have some of those relationships that are struggling with these renewals and they don't have a product that we can bring. We can possibly bring them some exclusive rights to a program where they can just, be the heartbeat, be the soldiers on the ground, open the doors, get the relationships. We got the product behind them to support them and to put it together. Our website we got, it's CT hyphen, IP.com, Community Transit Insurance Program. It's very informative, pretty much tells the reader everything you need to know about our program, what it does, how it can help you. But yeah, working with other agents across country is kind of our next phase into what we're doing, launching this thing, working out some kinks. But to scale and then to get moving forward, we're gonna need some help. We're cruising across the country, building the brand, doing those things. But at the end of the day, the relationships that are local are definitely critical to help us grow and doing what we're doing.
So what paper is it actually on?
Palomar XS,
Okay.
it's fantastic. Our relationship with our partners at RT Specialty, it's a big part of this. Shout out to Chris Conager, Charlie, and the guys there. It's RT Public Entity, big partners of us. I met Chris years ago, and we kind of kicked it off and got my first deal. He's been the relationship I've had then, and it's built even farther since then. Now he's the president of the Public Entity Group at RT. I mean, he's a fantastic partner for us and everything we're doing. And then on the backside, we've got excess placements with a kind of a public entity nonprofit type reinsurance captive at Transit Re.
So I can guarantee you there's somebody listening to this and they've been looking for a thread to pull on and they're out there like, man, if I just had access to a product, I can pound pavement. And so if we're talking to that person, how would you tell them to go prospect this public transit space?
I guess initially I'd say, draw a 250-mile radius circle around where you live, right? Every city's got public transit, all of them. You've got, from the public entity to the nonprofit piece of that, community actions, it's all there. It's public information, not hard to find, but if you're driving your car and you see a city bus, or you see a bus that is a transit vehicle, that's the risk. That's kind of the network of what we do. But a lot of them, they're a public entity type operation. They can have a third party contractor providing the service. So you might have a contract relationship with the person that's contract to the municipality or the nonprofit. It could be a lot of different ways in which you find those, but every state, every city, every county, I mean, public transit across the country.
Is it primarily all RFP?
No, not all of it. Some of it can be, some of it could be a broker selection thing where, we're that market for that local agent where they're out competing for the deal, or, we'll, proceed with an opportunity of making it run the broker selection RP to control the whole thing. But the risk purchase group that we created, it's a nonprofit entity. It's owned by the members. So a lot of times some of those purchasing guidelines are a little bit diminished due to that. It's a nonprofit. We've not pushed that needle, quite as hard as we might in the future, but, it's ready when we need to.
So you've built this thing and it has taken off way faster than you expected. What's next? Build out something else in the public entity space?
Yeah. I think, Eddie and I have talked about what do we do? Right. And you're going to get this point where you get it here and then you got to make some decisions. Right. So, I think we're open to do really anything with the public entity space on liability side of that. We've got great, partners on, we need, the property side or you know, the physical damage, any of those other lines aside, we've got all those partnerships. Right. But driving this liability piece, the big part of it is, the pressure of insurance has been because a lot of them have had guaranteed cost insurance. We push a self-insured retention model. You know, you know, take some skin. If you do, you'll find probably some premium relief that you hadn't found before because the insurance carriers take 100% of the risk. Here, if you got a good culture safety, do the right thing. Data is power. Loss runs tell a story. And if those loss runs tell a good story, why continue to pay so much to a guaranteed cost market when you can assume some of that, find some premium relief, put that money back and reinvest it and do something else with it. But you take some retention, and part of that is I think the most critical part of our program is an exclusive TPA relationship with a public entity TPA, so everything we do in that, we can at real time, we can look at the loss ratio, number of claims incurred in our entire program at one time. And I think what we hear from the members is out of the gate, they finally have a voice in the claim process. Because before guaranteed cost, you basically listen to what the adjuster tells you, and that's what happens, right? And this deal with our TPA, man, it's a partnership with our members. I mean, they're partnered with them, open lines of communication, onboarding, but then they get to be involved in deciding maybe which way to do something. So I think that's the big part of this is that whole thing about having no voice. Part of the problem we want to also bring is to give these people a voice that write the checks and pay these premiums.
What does the typical public transit risk look like? Is it kind of like regular transportation where it's all over the board? You have best in class all the way to, what is a maintenance program? Or is it a little bit more buttoned up because it is public entity? What do those risks look like? I'm just curious as somebody who used
Yeah,
to ride
yeah.
transportation.
You know what I'd say? I'd say it's a little bit more buttoned up, because they're all federally funded, right? So they've got to follow FTA guidelines on safety, policy procedure. They all have a defined safety program. So what we have seen is it's an industry that does the right thing a majority of the time. Things just happen, right? Accidents occur, things happen. But I think the difference is the commodity that you're moving is people, not a product. So it's different, right? It's sons, daughters, grandmothers, grandfathers, friends, family. It could be a lot of people that are moved on those buses. So I think the difference of just core transportation, you're moving just a product. With public transportation, we're moving people, and it's got to be done in a safe manner, in a safe way. And you know, throughout the industry and the people we've met, the relations we built, it's just a fantastic group of people. That get up each and every day and move people for their jobs, medical appointments, um, anywhere. A to Z. People are moving right every day, all day. Got to do it safe, got to do it efficient. And there's a lot of fantastic people that are in transit from the leadership roles all the way down to people that drive the bus, people that fix the buses. So it's an amazing industry, um, without a doubt. But it's a little different than just standard transportation.
So tell us, you were telling me about where you're at book size and book wise right now. 7 years in, just to, kind of for some context to validate what you've done in a short amount of time. Can you mind sharing the numbers with us for the listeners? Not in a
Absolutely.
hubris or braggadocious way, just as a, hey, here's what's possible.
Yeah. Training to 2 million. Hopefully should get that, maybe by the end of the year, maybe the first of next year. TTM right now, we're, 11/1 to 10/31, over 600 new business. Having a good year, been a lot of fun. But, Larry's going to like, David, this class, man, it's called the $1 Million Challenge. You're not quite there yet. So I'm like, well, And like that cheese it, right? I mean, I'm not sure that I'm done yet, but man, it's a lot of work. It really is. And just getting to where I am now, you sit there and think, we get off the ground, how am I going to do this? And then time management's critical. When some of the things you'll hear from Larry, take things away, do these things. It's so true. And that's kind of what I've learned more than anything is going through all those things, right? And now a lot of those things that Larry or Gordon or Nate would push, now it's like it gets damn real when you're doing what we're doing now. So, Eddie's having a fantastic year. I think, um, you know, we got a great group of producers at Insurica, and I think, we're doing what we can to stay on top of that leaderboard and do the right thing because at the end of the day, numbers motivate a lot of people. But there's a lot of time and effort work into those numbers. But, is it hard? Is it easy? Absolutely it is. But, we just develop a good strategy, develop a good team, got great resources. And that's another part about, Insurica with the resources we get. But man, our account management teams, holy moly, they're the reason we get to do what we do and move this program like that. I mean, we've got amazing account executives and Shannon to Kathy to Melinda to Nicole. I mean, these ladies are our lifeblood that push us right to do what we do, and they can take on deals and go and run, and then Eddie and I can do our thing. So a part of our success, and I'd say a big part of it is structure, support. But those account management ladies, man, they're awesome. Team Lawton, they're awesome.
Starting over at 44 with a industry that has an 80 to 90% failure rate, were you aware of the failure rate? And did you like really know what you were getting into? Or this is what I'll just say, dude, 2 million at the end of 7 years is insanity.
Yeah. So, trending to two, about 1.75 today. Here's the truth. I was in the environmental business and we did some interesting things and things just didn't pan out like I wanted to do in the end. And I made a big career move. Did something for a few months after that. Then I said, I've got to do something different. And so I got into this and really was living out of my 401k with kids at home, right? Wife, all those good things. And I knew I needed to do something, but at the end of the day, I couldn't fail. I haven't failed in sales ever. So had a lot of confidence in doing this. And big part of it was my wife. The support, you get to do something at 44 and do something crazy and do something new. She was a big part of that. Um, Everything she does each and every day allows me to do what I'm doing. So been tough, man, but today is a good day. Future's good. Kids are healthy, and that's what matters.
That's awesome. We'll wrap this up here. I want to be respectful of your time, but just real quick, you got an axis deer over your left shoulder. You got, I don't know what the one is over the other. And you just got back from you sent me a picture of you standing with Afro Man. You and your wife went to go see an Afro Man concert. If you're listening on the podcast, he's literally in his bar at his house where he has like a crazy assortment slash collection of rare whiskey. So you do a lot outside of insurance as well. You're blowing and going on the personal side of things too. So tell me about that side of David Cooper.
Yeah. So, man, the Afro Man concert, it was so much fun. 300 people at this little brewery in Duncan, Oklahoma. It was a lot of fun. I was kind of a fan in college, just good fun rap music. And then I'm a red dirt guy. The Oklahoma red dirt stuff. That's what I like. I like to hunt and fish. I guess kind of a bourbon connoisseur. Got in the ranching business this year with some cattle. Got some property.
Cool.
So um, you had to find some tax write off somewhere or another, man. If not, man, the federal government, they'll just steal your money. You better find a way to do some different things. So at the end of the day, but man, that's, South Texas hunting. I did a lot of that with a axis deer, and then or there's a fallow deer. Just it's a way to get out and be in nature. You know, this work and this stuff is hard. You got to clear your mind and get out and do other things. So that's what I try to do.
Got it. No golf? Not a golfer?
Well, hold on. There is a little bit of golf. Yep. You know, a lot more a few years ago when I wasn't near as busy, but I still do play. I enjoy the game. It's a lot of fun. Have been fortunate to play at some pretty amazing places, and hopefully I can get more efficient and play more golf soon. That's what I really like to do. But and one thing I did, since Mike is not here, I'll go ahead and plug him. You know, got a few of these books a long time ago. I've shared with some, share with others. I have a twin brother who will be in this business probably by the end of the year. This is the first thing I've given him. It's a great book. Mike, and he did a fantastic job. Man of the game. It's right here. You know, it's not that complicated if you really dial it down. You know, I think you just got to avoid trying to sell people. Be yourself, gain their trust. Let the rest be the rest.
Boom. Let's put a pin in it there. You got anything else? Any parting shots before we go?
I guess, you know, words of wisdom, words of advice to others. You know, it's not easy, but if you sit there and you've got a group of customers, or you're doing something different, and you're interested in doing something crazy like this, you can do it, but you're definitely gonna have some support from your agency. Um, I'm available. I'll definitely take calls, help anybody I could. Um, but it's a game changer, I'll tell you that. And where we're started and where we're headed, um, Eddie and I feel like we're on like the front seat of a roller coaster at Six Flags, going in circles. Right, each day is a different turn, a different challenge, but man, we enjoy it. Um, it's been fun. We've got a lot of great support from our team at Insurica, from the corporate folks to others. So that's part of this. You know, it's your spouse at home that helps you. It's your people at your agency that help you, and it's your team. And those are the most critical things to find a path to success. And it's been a fun ride in these 9 months, and man, in 9 more months, it'll be quite interesting to see where we go.
Awesome. Tell us one more time, what's the website, and then how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, yeah. You can Google just the Community Transit Insurance Program. It'll pop right up on Google. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find our CTIP. It's going to be kind of the acronym of what we got. Um, you can find us there, email us, however you want to do it. But you can find me on LinkedIn, message me. I'm here to be a resource to whoever wants to listen.
Awesome. David, man, thanks so much for hopping on. Appreciate your time. And yeah, we'll be in touch.
Take care. Bye.
All right, see you.